Hey, Kyle Ulig here. Hey, I'm going to show you guys a recipe for my chocolate turtle cake. Now this is a recipe I made up on my own, however, it's just a natural evolution. You have the chocolate turtle candies. Why not make a cake out of it? I'm sure you'll find thousands of different recipes, but this is one that I just came up with on my own for a party one time. You'll see here in the work bowl, I already have a 12-ounce bag of dark chocolate chips. This is going to be for the ganache, which you'll want to make ahead of time because you want to let it set up. Now to this, you want to add an equal amount, 12 ounces, which about a cup and a half of heavy cream. All right, let's see. We got the cup, and then we got a half cup. Alrighty, now this has to go into the microwave for about 3 minutes. And then afterwards, you'll be able to mix it real smooth. I'll show you. Alright, now that the heavy cream and chocolate mixture has ended, and okay, I can pick it up. Let's take it back and over, and oh look, a spatula magically appeared. And what you want to do is just go through, and it's going to, at first if you look in the sides it looks like nothing's melted. Just start stirring and just take, feel free to take plenty of time. You just got to make sure, you see everything's all melted anyway. It takes a little bit of time for the chocolate to really melt into that liquid. But as you stir it, it'll come together. As you can see, it's darkening quite nicely. Actually, if you make this rather loose, it makes it quite a delicious hot chocolate. Next video I make, I'm going to work on timing this out so I'm not standing here stirring for about 5 minutes. Let's see, it's almost smooth. You can see it's still just a few chunks. Last remaining pieces are all melted up. But you see how nice this is starting to look. Now I'm going to put this in the fridge and leave it there hour, a couple hours, however long it takes, but it's going to set up to make an almost frosting-like consistency. And it's going to taste like real creamy dark chocolate. Oh man, I could just take a spoon and eat this all by itself, and well, I have. Alrighty, so that's looking pretty smooth. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the fridge. And on the next scene, I'll show you how to make the caramel sauce. Hey guys, now it's time to see my caramel sauce. The first thing you're going to need is 2 cups of sugar into a saucepan, preferably with a heavy bottom, because you're going to want to use something that can control the heat rather well. Alright, now we have 2 cups, and then the other thing you're going to need is 1 cup of water. And 1 tablespoon of light corn syrup, which one little squirt there is all you need. So now, what you got to do is you got to put it on high, and then you're going to wait for it to dissolve and start bubbling. Alright, so as you can see, we've come to pretty much a boil here, and the sugar is mostly dissolved. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to turn it down to about medium-low. Just give this 1 quick swizzle to make sure that it's completely dissolved, but after that you don't want to touch it or else it'll start crystallizing. Now what we're going to wait for is to wait for a kind of golden amber color to start coming out before you want to touch it again. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes or so, and you can see that the bubbles are really starting to be real thick and boiling on top of each other, and you can't even see the pan anymore. It's taken on a slight like light amber consistency, and the smell is starting to get almost like a candy. Now what we're going to do is, this is at a point where we're allowed to stir it, and you're going to want to give a little stir, mainly to make sure that that's equal temperature all through. You don't want to have cold pockets whenever you go to finish it off with the heavy cream. So now we're just going to wait for a more dark, like a dark amber. And then at that point we'll put in 2 cups of heavy cream. Alright, so now we've got it down to a kind of a darker, a golden amber, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to turn it all the way back up to high, because we're going to want it to get to a rolling boil almost. So when we put in the heavy cream, if it's not as hot as it can be, it could easily, the caramel could cool inside the heavy cream, making it clump up, and then while all you'd have to do is stand there and stir it for another 10 minutes, and it would eventually do it. It'd still take a lot of time. Now we can see it's really darkening to a dark amber, and that's exactly when we want to put in 2 cups of heavy cream. And it's really going to start boiling there. We're going to want to give that a stir. And now, of course, we still have it on high heat, so any bits that that turned into caramel candies will just kind of dissolve inside the heavy cream. And then we just want to wait for it for a couple minutes to boil, just to kind of get some of the water out of the cream. However, you do want to knock it down back onto medium, because cream, like milk, has a very high chance of boiling over, like it's trying to do now. Alright, so now we see this kind of boiled down a little bit. It's gotten quite dark. So it's been about 2 minutes. I've let it continue boiling a little bit. Give it a little stir, a little final stir. And then we're going to take it off the heat. And as you watch it bubble down, you'll see there will be a very nice and thick caramel sauce. Now this goes good over all sorts of stuff. It's good over ice cream, good over waffles, over your morning cereal, everything. So anyway, now we're going to let that cool a little bit, and now we're going to move on to the chocolate cake, or actually I make a chocolate brownie to fill in for the cake. Hey, Kyle here again. Now I'm going to move on to the cake, or actually I like to use a brownie recipe. Now, this is actually my favorite brownie recipe, and I've never found a reason to actually move on to anything more gourmet. The old baker's chocolate 1 bowl brownie recipe. So what I used to use, of course they've changed it to soft and chewy chocolate drops now, but it's actually the same exact measurements of everything except for 1 cup of flour is the only thing you'd have to change off of the current recipe's back recipe. So what we're going to need at first is the 4 squares of baker's chocolate. Now these things you can just toss in, or sometimes it's easier to break them in half. Now sometimes I can get this down to where they break in half for me, but it doesn't seem like they're wanting to do it. So anyway, what you do, if you can't get them to break in half using leverage, get out a good old knife real quick, and then it becomes very easy to just lock in, and you can chop them up like so. We'll get extra camera action from our expert cameraman, Dalton Perrine. Is all it needs, and you might want to, keep people away just in case, bits of chocolate go flying. So anyway, once you get these done, this is actually going to go into the microwave for a couple minutes, about 2 minutes on high. And what you're going to do is you're just going to want to look for the chocolate to melt and the butter to melt. Oh, that guy didn't want to do it. There you go. So anyway, this goes into the microwave for 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, we'll take a look at what it looks like, and it'll be ready to be stirred up all smooth. Alright, so now our chocolate and butter mixture is just ready to come out. But before we take it out and continue to make it, what we're going to want to do is we're going to preheat the oven. It's going to be at 350 degrees. And while we're at the preparation stage, it's good to think about the pan ahead of time. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to ham up the pan. This is just a 13 by 9 basic baking dish. And I like to use a little strip of parchment paper down the center because the sides I can get down in, but the center sometimes sticks. And in the end, what we're going to want to do is flip it out, so it might be problems if it's sticking in the middle and you can't quite get to it. So then we're going to put in the parchment, and then we're going to grease up the parchment. And that should make everything a whole lot easier to work with later on. Now, let's take a look at our butter and chocolate mixture. It's cool enough to handle. You can see it looks, once again, it looks like the chocolate hasn't fully melted. Because you can still see the butter kind of floating around, chocolate pieces all in there. But you'll see that once you get stirring, take a look at that. It's all nice and dark. It gets going very quickly. Now, I will mention though, in this mixture I do like to use real butter. I'm a fan of using real butter in baking. I find that a lot of the recipes are made for butter. Margarine just has different chemical components and makes it act just a little bit differently. So I like to stick with the basics. So I like to stick with butter instead of margarine. Now, what we're going to add next is we're going to have 2 cups of sugar. Now, we have about 1 cup of white sugar. Now then, what I like to do though, is sometimes I like to add in just a little bit of brown sugar, because brown sugar is white sugar coated in molasses. And I think that this mixture is actually going to go well with the caramel. It's going to be a lot easier if I just hand it out into the cup instead of trying to squeeze it into that bag. There we go. Okay, could use a little bit more. Alright, now then, we put that into the brownie mixture. Alright, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to mix this right up. Now sugar is hygroscopic. It sucks in the water. Can actually act as a wet ingredient. So you'll probably usually end up finding that the recipe's called for the sugar to go in first before anything else, just so that it has a chance to dissolve in the liquid that's already in there. Next, we're going to add in 3 eggs. Now, it's one thing that you'll want to do though is mix in each egg completely before mixing in the next one, because eggs do a lot within baked goods. But one of the things that people generally don't even think about is they emulsify the entire thing. There's a lot of fats and waters coming together in a lot of baked goods, especially this brownie recipe. Now the emulsifiers in the eggs is going to hold this batter together, and it's just going to come out a lot smoother. And emulsifications come out a lot better whenever you build them instead of trying to force them together at once. So here's our final egg. I'm taking the lazy route, just putting the shells back in the carton, but you can throw them away if you so prefer. Alright, now once our final egg is completely mixed in, what we'll want to do is we'll want to add in the last wet ingredient, which is 1 teaspoon vanilla. I generally don't measure this, I just give a little drizzle. Alright, now that's it's coming together rather well. Now what you'll notice is that this becomes actually very viscous and very thick almost, and that is completely normal for that to happen. Don't worry if it's already thick, it's going to come out to be a very, very thick batter. Alright, and the final ingredient we're going to add in is 1 cup of flour. Now there's no substitutions you can really do with flour. So just add in the whole cup and slowly mix that in. And then get that going. Make sure that it's fully integrated. There we go. Now, a lot of times people like to put nuts, and that's totally fine. I'm not nuts about nuts, about my brownies, but later on we are going to be adding walnuts into the center of the cake. So, especially this one, I would advise against putting nuts into the brownie batter because you're going to be using nuts later on. You don't want to be overkill, make it too crunchy. Alright, and finally what we're going to want to do, one of the hardest things to do with this batter, is we're just going to want to put it into our 13 by 9 inch pan that we've prepared already. And now it's going to make a rather shallow brownie on here. They're not going to be very thick, but in a way that's almost what we want because we want something that's easier to handle. And a thinner batter is slightly easier to handle because it tends to be a little bit more flexible than a very thick batter. You can go ahead and help it out, spread it out along everything. Alright, now then, brownie batter is ready to go into the oven. I'll wait. See, the oven's not fully preheated. If you were smart, you probably would have preheated at the beginning, but I'm generally not a stickler for this, unless if it's an application that requires constant heat, like a souffle. It doesn't really matter that you start in a hot oven, it'll take a couple extra minutes. Now, the package says usually for it to be in there for about 30 to 35 minutes. However, I don't care much for the way the brownies do turn out that way. So what I'm going to do is, normally I'd set it for about 25. Being that I put it in before fully preheated, I'm going to put it in for 28. And then at the end of this, we're going to do the toothpick test, and it's going to want to come out almost gooey but not runny. So that way it kind of makes a very gooey brownie. That's the kind of brownie I like. So anyway, we're going to let this bake, and I'll see you guys whenever we're ready to pull it out. Alright, now the timer went off, and I'm going to go ahead and check this to see if it's done. We definitely see it looks good. And toothpick's coming out pretty clean, which means that's done. Now I'm just, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab the last cutting board real quick. It's heat proof. Then just going to go ahead and grab this and pull it out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to let this cool down for about 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to flip it out, and that way we're going to leave it for just a little bit longer so that I can finish cooling. And after that, we'll start assembling the final product. Alright, so now we're ready to flip it out. It's been about 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is we have a sheet pan to flip it out onto, because I don't want to, if I don't do it correctly, it might cut itself on off the edges and I have a whole mess on my hands. Although if you do it this way, you put the pan over first, grab hold, and then give it a few taps, and then let's see here if I can get this off. Let's see, it's giving me a little bit of trouble. It's hot. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Butter knife. Get that off. And there you see the parchment is helped us get this out pretty cleanly. Pull that off, comes off. And now look at that. Now this could be a good batch of brownies, or for our purposes, what we'll be doing is we'll just be cutting this in half and then building it. So we're going to let this rest a little bit longer to cool on the bottom, so that way the ganache and the caramel don't run because they get too hot. Alright, then I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whenever it gets cool. So now we're ready to finish this up. Now the first thing I like to do is I do like to trim the edges. Let me move this to make sure that you have a clean view. I do like to trim the edges. And mainly because the edges do tend to get a bit crusty, as you can see. And I like the I like to have the more chewy parts, but not so much the crunchy, crispy parts of the edges. So we're just gonna slice on down the edges, make a rectangle. Now this is where, if you wanted to make something for a larger party, you could make 2 batches, just double the recipe of the brownie batter, and this would be the bottom layer, and you'd have a separate one just to put on top. However, just for a single, you want to make this for just your family or just a few guests, make 1 batch, cut it on down the middle, separate that out. Now we're ready to build. Okay, so the first thing we have our ganache, which is thickened up quite nicely. And what we're going to do is we're just going to ladle this out. And we're going to get a medium layer. We don't want it to be too thick to where it slides around, but we do want a good application of the ganache. Because we have our walnuts, we want to stick to this. Okay, now then, we have a bag of chopped walnuts. Any brand will do. Maybe give them a little squeeze just to crunch them up a little bit more, and then just sprinkle them on. You want to have good coverage, but you don't want to make it so that it's a solid layer. You want there to be enough where this caramel sauce can kind of sink out in between all the nooks and crannies. See, it's nice. It's thickened up a little bit, but still good, and a little bit on the runny side. What we want to do is drizzle that on. Now then, just gonna dab that around, make sure we get coverage all around. Now then, we have plenty. Bottle this up, and this will last in your fridge a week or 2, and you can put that on all sorts of stuff like I was mentioning earlier. It'll be great on ice cream, cereal, heck, if you add in a little bit of coffee, it might even go pretty good with some pork chops. So then, now that we have our filling all underway, what we're going to do, you can take this spatula, of course, or you can just pick it up. It's pretty solid. And then lay that right on top. Give that a kind of firm squeeze. And then we can do is then use the chocolate ganache, and this will just be almost like chocolate frosting. Get around on the edges. Now it's going to look kind of runny if you didn't make it a day ahead of time, but within a couple hours this will actually set up quite well. Just make sure you have a nice thick layer on the outside. And this will be messy. This isn't like a buttercream where it'll just stick right on. Alright. Now, there we go. Now all you have to do is then let this firm up just a little bit for, you know, a good couple hours. Then you can just kind of scrape away everything else and take it and put it on your serving platter. Or hey, you know, you can just cut into it right here like this. It's messy, but man, is it delicious. In fact, I'm going to get myself a plate. I'm going to cut myself a little piece of it. Now this goes great with ice cream, I will say that. And get a good bite of it. Oh yeah. And the chocolate, mixed in with the walnuts and the caramel. Tastes just as good as any chocolate turtle candy you'll have. We have the chewy brownie in there, so it makes it much more dessert-like. This is great for party, or just great for a good weekend dessert, whenever you want to treat yourself. All right then. So this is my chocolate turtle cake, and my name is Kyle Ulig, and I hope you had a good time watching.